Hi everyone. Today we study the portion of Vayikra, the first portion in the book of Leviticus, and I'm sharing with you the Rabbi synopsis of the Rabbi's talk from Lekutei Sichot, volume 27, the first talk. The entire book is considered the book of sacrifices, Torah Kohanim, the Torah that belongs to the Kohens, and the start of the portion, as the rest of the portion, is teaching us about sacrifices, different categories of sacrifices. Regarding sacrifices in general, Rambam, the codifier in Jewish law of Korbanot, of sacrifices, says the following in the laws of the Maaseh Korbanot, the performance of sacrifices. If someone made a vow to bring a large animal and he brought a smaller animal, he did not fulfill his vow, meaning he needs to bring a big animal. But in the reverse, if someone had pledged to bring a small animal and he brought a larger animal to pay up for his commitment, he had fulfilled his duty and is free from his vow. We need to, and the source for Rambam, as Kesef Mishnah, the commentator on Rambam, writes, it's from a Mishnah in the tractate Menachot, the tractate that talks about sacrifices and vows. The Mishnah says the following: if someone pledged a small one and he bought a big one, he did not fulfill his mitzvah. I'm sorry, if someone has pledged a big one and bought a small one, he did not fulfill the mitzvah. If someone pledged a small one and he brings a bigger one, according to Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, he did not fulfill his mitzvah because he did not bring what he vowed, what he pledged to bring. According to rabbis, the sages, he did fulfill the mitzvah, and therefore Rambam rules according to Chachamim, to the rabbis. As the Rebbe, a question that many commentators ask, seemingly he pledged to bring a small one, a kid, and he brought a goat or a bull. After all, the Torah tells us, Mutza, the words that came out of your lips you must guard and keep, and do as you have pledged. In the book of the last book of Dvarim, the Torah says, Motza sfatecha tishmor ve'asita ka'asher nadarta. You must fulfill your vow the way you spoke. Seemingly, if he bought a bull and he pledged a goat, he did not fulfill the obligation that he took upon himself. So how is it possible that according to rabbis, and Rambam brings it as Jewish law, he did fulfill the mitzvah? Says the Rebbe, there are two ways to explain it. One is from the perspective of the donor, of the pledger, of the person made the pledge. We speak on his behalf, and we say that when he pledged a smaller animal, he did not mean only a maximum that size. All he said is minimum, no less than that. But if he did more, then for sure he fulfilled his obligation. In other words, when he said a kid or a goat and he bought a bull, it didn't mean specifically that he wants to give only a goat. He meant to say we do not want to bring a sacrifice that is smaller and less than a goat. But if you bring, but more than a goat, for sure, he had in mind that he perhaps can bring. That's one way. Another way is from the perspective of the object itself. We say, like, if someone gives me a pledge to give me $100 and he gave me 150 or two, we say that in the 200, 100 is already included. The same here. When he pledged to bring a small animal and he bought a bigger animal, we say that in the bigger animal is already included the smaller plus. So the innards, the legs, all the body parts, the head, he pledged of a smaller animal. When he brings a bigger animal, it includes the smaller and more some. That's why he fulfilled his duty. But on the reverse, if he pledged a bigger one and he brings a smaller one, he did not fulfill his promise, his obligation, his vow. Ask the Rebbe, if that's the case, on both ways, that he meant no less than the smaller one, therefore if he brings a bigger one, definitely fulfill the mitzvah, or as we say, in the bigger one, the smaller one is already included, he's seemingly, it would be encouraging a person to bring more, a bigger animal than what he pledged. Because after all, the purpose of sacrifice is to dedicate myself to God. And we say, with regards to sacrifices, there is a verse in the book of Leviticus, Kol chelev la Hashem, all of the best, the fattest, the choicest you bring to God. Meaning, if someone wants to pledge something to God, bring the choicest and the best one. We learn it from the first person who brought a sacrifice, Abel, and it says that he brought mibchorot tzono mechel beyen. He brought in from the choicest and the best animals in his herd. So we learn from here that when someone is bringing a sacrifice, he should always choose the choicest and the best one. Based on the way we explain the opinion of rabbis, it seems that it should be allowed for anyone who pledged a smaller animal to bring another one. Not only that, we should encourage them, because every time someone does a bigger animal, he actually does it in a better way, in a choicer way, in a greater way than if he fulfilled his words the way he said them. Yet we see that Rambam writes, in the way the language Rambam uses, that if he did it after the fact, we say he had fulfilled his duty. But there is no such a thing as telling someone that you can do it, or to encourage someone to do it. Because you say that you're going to bring a goat or you're going to bring a kid, then we ask you to bring what you have pledged. Only after the fact, if he brought a bigger animal, we say you fulfill your duties. According to the way you explain, it should be something that we should say you can do it either way. Also, we should encourage him to show that he is dedicated to God and he's so committed that he wants to do more than what he pledged to do. And that's not the case. According to Rambam, the way Rambam rules, says the Rebbe, when it comes, the way to explain it, and that can explain the argument between Rabbi Yehuda and Chachamim. When the Torah tells us in Deuteronomy, Motzat sfatecha tishmor, all the words that are uttered out of your lips you must keep and guard, ve'asita kasher nadata, and fulfill all that you vows. There are two parts into the verse. One is anything that come out of your mouth, you must fulfill, you must keep. That means no matter what you say, exactly the words you uttered must be fulfilled. And that's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Rabbi Yehuda will put the emphasis on the first part of the verse. Motzas sfatecha tishmor. Guard the words, your lips, and the words that come out of your lips. And if I say a kid, or I said a goat, or I said a sheep, and I want to bring a ball, I did not fulfill my duties because my words were for a particular animal, and that animal is the only one that can fulfill my obligation. Chachamim, rabbis, pay attention to the second half. Ve'asita kasher nadata. Do as you have pledged. Do as you have pledged. We're not looking at the specific words. We're looking at the content, what the person had in mind. The person wanted to show appreciation to God. The person wants to get closer, as the word korban, sacrifice, translates into coming close to God. And therefore, if he pledged a smaller animal and he wants to bring a bigger one, we say to him, by all means, you're more than welcome. That's why he's allowed to. But because you have the first part of the Torah, of the text, then we don't tell a person you can always do it. We don't tell a person you're encouraged to do it, because after all, God's begun this commandment with keep and guard your lips, and everything that comes out of your lips should be fulfilled. Therefore, according to the rabbis, even though we pay attention in the second half, We only do it after the fact, only after he brought it without consulting the rabbis. But if he goes to consult the rabbis will say to him, do exactly as you said, because God says, guard your lips. Says the Rebbe, that will explain a much deeper understanding regarding sacrifices. Rambam rules that if someone made a vow, for when it comes to any prohibition, that for example he's not going to eat meat for so many days, or he's not going to travel somewhere, or he's going to stay up many hours of the night, the Jewish law says try to annul the vow as soon as possible. Why? So that he should not transgress a vow. He should not break his word. And therefore, the rabbis will encourage the person to go and annul the vow. There is an annulment process in which they can annul a vow. When it comes to sacrifices and dedication to God, doing a mitzvah of tzedakah or bringing sacrifices, not only we do not encourage them to annul the vow, but we encourage them to keep every part of the vow. In other words, when it comes to sacrifices, a vow should be kept and is so to say encouraged, as opposed to other types of vows involve prohibitions when we try to convince him to annul and to keep to make sure that he annuls the vow, so he should not come to a sin. And the reason is because sacrifices or vows regarding sacrifices the purpose of them is to bring a person closer to God. And therefore, if a person made a vow, we say to him, don't annul the vow, instead make good a new vow, whatever you pledge. That will explain why, according to rabbis, if after the fact he had done more than what he should, if the purpose of sacrifice to bring closer a person to God, then when he does bigger, instead of a goat, he's bringing a bull, or he brings a ram instead of a kid, then we say to him, you fulfill, you do this. And the reason is because the purpose of the vow is to bring you closer. When you do to a greater measure, you actually come much, much closer. Now we can understand why Rambam rules according to Chachamim, not to Rabbi Yehuda. We can understand why they argue, and we can understand why it's not encouraged to change my words, and we don't tell somebody to do it, but after the fact, the Jewish law is sided with rabbis that he had fulfilled his duties. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.